Waiting, waiting, waiting. Come on, there we go. Hello, friends. Thank you for joining me again today. My name is still Dan. And I'm still Dan the Art Man, still an artist. Although, as some of you heard in my last broadcast, I'm now back to Dan the musician, and Dan the writer, and Dan the, man, I'm not sure what to call this next category. It's more misleading in my case. Anyway, spiritual leader. Anyway, hello. Thank you. Good to, hello, Thinker 888. Hey, still Dan. All right, let's get official. Anyway, this is, I write it down that I forget what number. Should I worry about that? Daily Art Adventure number 974. Woohoo! More. The hard work of rough sketches. I've many times on my broadcast, the hardest work of a commission job is the rough sketches. And this is just a little job, little charcoal sketch. Let me show you. This is the third such thing I've done for this client. That was the second, and this was the first. These are charcoal sketches, and in my last broadcast I explained and described and demonstrated my technique for what I call charcoal sketch, as opposed to, in my case, charcoal drawing, which is very smooth, no hand brush marks, so to speak, and a lot of fun. But that's not what this is. This charcoal sketch. So if you want to know what a charcoal sketch is, go back to my last broadcast. So again, for those of you who missed it, surprise, surprise. This is probably a racist joke, but my heart, no. Listen to this. In the early stages of coming out of racism, personally and culturally, one is not allowed to observe racial differences or make jokes. Once one is out of the initial stages, then we come into a more healthy phase of racial relationships where jokes are perfectly appropriate. I declare that I'm in the more healthy phase. So, surprise, surprise. What does the Chinese janitor say when he jumps out of the closet? Surprise! Horrible. Hilarious. All right. So, I've changed careers. If you missed my last broadcast, this is crazy. After 18 years of busting my buns and working fast and 1,000 miles an hour to be an artist, all of a sudden now I am back to being a full-time Christian leader slash musician slash writer. So ironically, all those times over the last several years when I would get philosophical and you would say, stick to painting, it's what you're good at. And I would say, well, maybe, but really inside I'm really a philosopher who paints, not a painter who philosophizes. Well, guess what? I'm going back to being a full-time philosopher, if you will. I'm going back to being a full-time thinker, writer, teacher, and a part-time artist, and a full-time musician. Crazy. All right. Hey, but let me show you what I am doing. I'm finally, one nice thing about this season is I'm back to artistically doing what I want to do. A few commissions, and I want commissions because I still want to make money, even though my income will be coming from that other field that I just mentioned. Some of my income will still be coming from art. One of the projects that I have has languished for years now is my my book Breakable Laws of Paintings. I'm just going to show you, again, I don't expect you to read this, but just kind of get a general impression of what my book, this is one of my work panels. I don't know if this is how other artists or how other writers work. I rather doubt it. But since my book is so visual, I'm actually putting this up in front of me. So those are the last, 14 pages of chapter 1. So I'm very excited about that. Again, the book is called The Breakable Laws of Painting. And as you can see, it's very, very visual because I'm writing for artists. Artists don't like to read books. Are you kidding? Artists like to look at pictures. So even though it does have quite a bit of writing in it, it's chock full, as you can see, of pictures, diagrams, charts, cartoons, samples of my painting, samples of Rembrandt painting, and so on and so on and so forth. I also got permission from Tibor Nagy and Richard Schmid, two of my favorite living painters, to include their work. And I also got permission from, I'm forgetting his name, in Australia. I'll come back to that later. Anyway, to use his. Anyway, back to the subject at hand, shall we? Let's do more rough sketches, more the hard work of doing a commission. So this is what I did in the last broadcast. I did this rough sketch very quickly, discovered some things really quickly, like, oh yeah, having one of the oars go off the page, that's, and then sort of to my surprise, I jumped all the way to a sketch that I felt like worked pretty well. Some of the salient points on this sketch is the horizon bisects the head. Well, evidently that's going to change, so we'll see. The boat tilted, the person in the boat off center, thus explaining the tilt of the boat, and so on and so forth. So I took, oh, actually I'm going in wrong order. I did this first, and then using my light table, I turned it over and did this one. All right, so this actually sketch number 3, but B. So then I scanned this into my computer, right? And in Photoshop, I did this to it. So I went from this quite rough sketch to this. And this is what I sent to my client. And she, predictably, not because of her, just because this is typical for the business. So she wrote me back yesterday and she said, yes, close. And then she proceeded to tell me all the things that were not close. First of all, she looks too fat. Oh, and this is a real person, and I'm certainly going to make sure she's not fat. She said that's the highest priority. And Jamie, if you're watching this, don't worry, my dear. I was going to make you slim and trim, which she is in real life. So anyway, it's just an accident of the roughness sketch that she looks. Anyway, basically, what she says two things. So more far away, more distant. Okay, so check. That makes sense. I wondered about that. You know, I debated that within my own mind. Did we want this kind of a close-up or further away? Okay, so we're going further away. Check. She says fog is good to fade out your trees, but not necessarily a landscape in the background. Whew. Now that is a big question mark to me. I do not know what she means by that. I mean, I guess she's calling this a landscape in the background. But it's okay to fade out to the trees. Anyway, I'm reading this not to complain or make fun of my client. I'm reading this to be instructive to my fellow artists. This is typical. This is typical. here's one of the hard things, has been one of the hard things for me to understand when I'm doing artwork as a commission for somebody else. Non-artists do not have the ability to see, they think they do. They will often say, in fact, my first boss, no, second boss, 40 years ago, he would say, I can see it in my mind. I used to drive me crazy when he said that, because I knew good and well he could not see it in his mind. That's why he couldn't draw it. Anyway, so I can't figure out what that means, because she doesn't know what it means either. She's got some vague notion. So anyway, I'm not going to worry about it. And then she says, can it be a bit more of a look down into the boat? Maybe, and here's my maybe sign. Yeah, I'm not sure about that. That's a maybe symbol, but we'll try it. We're going to try it. So I'm going to call that a high view. Okay. So far I've got two distinct changes. I'm not worrying about the one changes make her skinny, but that was going to happen anyway, so I'm not listing that in my changes. And then finally, she was envisioning the oars inside the boat, not in the water. But this is the least important. Okay, so once again, in my sketch, I had one oar in the water and one out of the water. So she seems to think that they're both in the water. And the reason I put one in the water is because this is an exciting angle. And this is not an exciting angle. Can you figure out why, by the way? It's a dead zone angle. Why? Because we already have one line. The bottom of the boat goes at that angle. The gunnel, this side of the boat, goes at that angle. And this side of the boat goes at that angle. And this oar. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 lines already going at that angle. So to add one more is what I call a dead zone. It's the same idea, by the way, little detour here, is when you're doing a painting and you put a tree close to the side of the painting and you make the tree parallel. If you do this, and now, every rule can be broken, you understand? But this is the rule. Don't make the tree parallel to the edge of the painting. Why? Because it's dead. It doesn't do anything. So rather, you should make that tree at an angle, one angle or the other. All right. So same thing here. So that's why I've got this over here. And I think, but we'll see. I'm going to redraw this anyway. And we'll see about the other oar. Also, this is where, I don't know, this might be a Dan Nelsonism. But I think most artists are sort of like me. I know what a rowboat looks like and how a rowboat works. And when you're in a rowboat, I think the oar, and I forget the name of this thing right here, the lock or the something. The oar dragging in the water is sort of normal, more normal than propped up on the gunnel. Anyway, and I might be wrong about that. That's all right, no big deal. All right, so let's go back to then, let's get ready to do sketch number 2. Hello, TR450. Good to have you here. Okay, so the main thing, and again, see, I'm using not my death control grip and not my skinny 5mm or 0.5 millimeter, pencil. But this, by the way, some of you, every once in a while, somebody asks, this is made by Creative Mark, and it's basically, somebody gave it to me a couple years ago, gave me one. This is the kind of thing I probably would never have bought for myself. Like, why would you need that, right? So it's fat lead in a holder. And I found that I love it. So now I think I've bought 2 more since then. Anyway, and the fatness of the lead is really good for doing rough sketches. because it makes a wider line and keeps you, as opposed to this, it makes a very skinny line. So this keeps you vague, general, loose, because it's fat. All right, let's see if I can. So here's the kind of thing that a non-artist won't really visualize. If we're looking at a boat in the water, I guess I'll do a small diagram here. But she wants to be looking down into the boat. Now, I'm sure not quite this much, but I'm going to exaggerate it to make the point. First of all, oh, and let me do that again. I drew the boat backwards. Okay? So let's say she wants us to be looking more down into the boat. And again, not necessarily quite this much, but again, I want to exaggerate to make the point. The problem with that is, then we're looking down at the person at the top of their head and from above. And since this person especially is supposed to be rather downcast, that was my first set of instructions from my client. It says here somewhere, tired, broken. Okay, a tired, broken person doesn't hold their head upright. A tired, broken person, their head is down. So we would just be seeing the top of their head. Now, again, this isn't exact, but here's the main thing. Where's the horizon? Where's the top of the lake? And the answer is way up here. There's the top of the lake. So this would be all water and a boat. And I don't think I hope that's not what she wants. I mean, you could ask me, well, isn't it possible, Dan, aren't you a good enough artist? Isn't it possible to do a good drawing from this angle? And my answer is, yeah, but no, not really. Kinda, but no. If I were doing a whole bunch of illustrations, say in a book, and they were all about this woman in a boat, yeah, it'd be great to have one from this angle. But no, if you only have one illustration, it's not a good angle. Do you understand what I'm saying about if we're looking down like this, the edge of the lake is way up here, way out of the frame. So let's do another sketch. And I'm thinking, okay, so here's the last sketch I did. So this is pretty much straight on. You know, the viewer here is about, you know, our camera, our lens, or our eyeballs are about 4 or 5 feet above the surface of the water, same as her head. And what she's asking is that we be looking down on her a little bit, so not this much, but that also means that now, instead of the horizon being here, if we're looking down, that means the more we tilt down, the higher up we go and the more we tilt down, the horizon moves from here up here. So I'm going to draw it up here and then see what I can do. So we're looking more down into the boat. That shape is not right, but I'm not going to worry about that right now. Oh, now I've just turned around, haven't I? She was going that way, now she's going that way. Well, I'm going to stick with that for a minute. One of the things that I discovered in my first set of sketches was that taking the oar off the edge of the painting, drawing, was a good idea. It helped prevent the donut hole syndrome. I defined that again in my last broadcast. I spent quite a bit of time talking about the donut hole syndrome. Okay. I'm going to correct the shape of this boat a little bit. I've got it too fat. Nope. Okay. She wants it further away, so let me do another small sketch. I'm sure I've still got the person in the boat is up too close. I'm going to keep drawing at the same angle, and I'll probably flop it late in the process. Okay, so she's going to be much smaller. That's fine. Oh, then we lose, don't we? No, now the oar cannot go off the edge. So we just lose that. That's all right. We'll have to avoid the donut hole some other way. Now, the second oar, again, see, she wants the oars inside the boat. And at this size, not only is that what I call a dead zone because it's parallel to 4 other lines, it's actually going to be hard to show at this size. Now, it's not going to be this small. You know, the illustration is going to be this big. But I hope this really does define what I'm talking about when I call a dead angle. A dead angle means the angle of the object doesn't help you any, doesn't do any good in the composition because it's parallel to a whole bunch of other lines. So, you know, all things being equal, I mean, sure, you could do a forest of birch trees and they're all parallel, and it would have a certain charm about it. It could. But generally speaking, that would not be the most artistic way to do it. And here I would point to, what's his name? Shishkin. Whew. I pulled it up. That's Shishkin. I have no idea. It's Russian. Anyway, Ivan Shishkin. That's right. Considered by some, he has been named in history the best painter of woods forest ever. And the trees in a Shishkin forest are more likely there'll be some straight ones, but then real dramatic thing like that. Okay, so that's usually the preferred, indicated by the smiley face. All right, so again, back to this. I'm going to erase that or, and even though I may have to explain this to a client, and of course, the boss is always right. She's paying for this. But see, that's a much more interesting, even it's still small, much more interesting. Now, let's talk for a minute about the, see, there's not even room for trees up here, right? The trees would be, well, can I zoom out that much further to include the trees? I don't know. These are things I'm asking myself right now. Could we do that? Would she want it this small? And that's really small. Okay, dead zone. Okay, I'm going to define it again. I guess I'll do it over here. Real simple. Not dead zone, I'm sorry, what I call the donut hole syndrome. It's real simple. HE stands for high energy. That means focal point, texture, contrast, color, hard edges, and psychological, like a person's face. So high energy area of your painting. Let's just talk as if we're doing paintings for a minute. Entirely surrounded by LE stands for low energy. Low energy, low energy, low energy. That's what I call a donut hole. It's an unpleasant thing. In some way, we want to connect the high energy zone to some of the boundaries, the borders of the painting, if you will, or to the frame, if you will. Then it doesn't bother us. That's all I'm going to say about that. All right, so back to this sketch. Is there any way my first thought is to just put reflective zones in the water. You know, when the breeze blows across a lake, I'm thinking here especially a fairly calm lake, there'll be light areas and dark areas because of the ripples. So I'm thinking something like this. And let me try to make that a little bit clearer for a moment. So here I'm going to indicate what I'm seeing as dark areas. This will be kind of subtle, right? Because the distinction between the two areas of the water is not that strong. It's rather subtle. So that would help to ground the boat. So, and again, basically to avoid the donut hole by making a shape that intersects with the boat. A shape that intersects with the boat that goes off the frame. Okay, so that's a trick for trying to avoid the accursed donut hole. Now again, once again, I do not know what she meant when she said some fog is good, parentheses, to fade out the trees, check, check, which is what I did in my last sketch, but not necessarily a landscape in the background. That is a mystery to me. I don't know what she means by that. Evidently, she's calling this a landscape, it seems to me. Anyway, I just can't figure it out. So I'm going to do another sketch, and if I miss the mark, then she will correct me yet again. Whew. I hope, if nothing else, I hope you're getting the reality of what I say often, that the hard work is in the sketches. Oh my goodness! And I have done this poorly so many times. I hate to admit it. I should have learned this lesson 40 years ago. When I'm doing rough sketches, thinking like logo design or comps and storyboards for an ad agency, and they should really know better, being an ad agency, but many times evidently they don't. What happens is I'll do a rough sketch, and the art director that I'm working for, I know I can visualize this. He'll take my rough sketch to the boss, to the account executive, to the person who's in charge, who's communicating with the client, and the art director will show the account executive the rough sketches. But you know what happens? The account executive, who's generally speaking not an artist, hears the term rough sketches, and he or she in their mind says, oh, pfft, who cares? I don't care about rough sketches. And so they say, yeah, that's fine. They're in a hurry. Don't bother me. I'm fine. I'm busy. You get the picture? And then I spend hours and hours and hours, oftentimes, doing the final artwork based on the rough sketch. And then when they see the final art, they go, what? Who the blankety blank did? I don't want that. Because they take the final. Does it sound like I'm angry? No, it's just the voice of, believe me, the voice of experience. Oh my goodness, it's happened so many times. Okay, she didn't say anything about like turning the angle of the boat, but that is what I've done here. I wonder why. Is that important? Yeah, I think it is. Let me tell you why. So I think that's a good angle. But because we've backed out from the boat a whole bunch, if I was to do this angle, the boat would be, let me draw and just see if I still, yeah, I do. The boat's too vertical. It's small already, and then turning it this way makes it even smaller. So no, I think my first impulse was correct. So in contrast, she didn't say anything about the angle of the boat, but in contrast to that, I am indeed going to change the angle of the boat somewhat. Now here's a good question. Should this boat be right in the dead center of this body of water? Tapping my fingers, driving me crazy. Thinking, well, let's just try it. I'm thinking yes, probably, which again, sort of, it breaks one of the rules, right? Putting something right dead center. But I think since the feeling that she wants, this is clear, she wants the feeling of desolation, loneliness, even some danger. So putting the boat in the center, I think, conveys that the best, but let's just see. So I've moved it up and to the left a little bit. No, I don't think it works. It's just weird. It just makes, like, why is this here? So no, I think my first intuition was correct. By the way, even what I just did right there is a good example of what I mean when I talk quite often. I call it artists. We paint by eye. You know, you've heard of the old paint by number thing. Well, artists actually paint by eye. And people who aren't artistic often miss this. Well, so do some artists. The alternative to that is, what is the alternative? The alternative is paint by principle or paint by rules. And I hope you're catching the irony here, because the name of my book that I'm working on, I just showed you, is called The Breakable Laws of Painting. So it's good to know the laws. If you don't know the laws, you're probably just screwing up. Every law can be broken, but you have to know when to break it, and it's your eye that will tell you. All right. So here I am indeed breaking one of the rules, sort of, about not having the subject right dead center. That's generally the rule. But when do you break? And when do you break the rule? The answer is actually quite simple. The answer is when there's a countervening or opposite rule at work. That's when you break the rule. It could be any number of rules. All right, so this oar, I think, out of the boat, that makes sense. And I mentioned the other day, whoops, am I off the camera? Sorry about that. That if I had ripples coming off the boat like this, that would mean the boat is moving. And that would give the sense of purpose, goal, destiny. And I think that's not what my client wants. The idea is, I think, that she's conveying to me, is she wants the boat. She wants this to be undirected, drifting, physically and emotionally both, physically and spiritually both, if you will. So then the ripples just go around, then you understand that the boat isn't moving. Now here we are again, this second oar. Could I put the oar this way? No, I mean, if you've never been in a rowboat, you might think an oar could go like that. But it can't, it could go up here. But not really. No. Oars just don't go like that. I mentioned a little while ago when I was talking about this, I don't know if this is a Dan Nelsonism or not. I don't think so. I think most artists are like me. I think we tend to see the world differently than non-artists, and we tend to have done that all of our lives. I mentioned before the story about, it was only about 15 years ago when I did an oil painting illustration for an ad agency. It's a really nice big painting. No. It was a series of paintings, and one of them, that's right, one of them was kind of a close-up of corn stalks, or a cornfield, but looking really kind of at the base of the corn stalks. And I painted the corn stalks. I don't know if I even did any reference. I don't know if I looked anything up online. As my memory has it, I did not. I just drew it from my memory, which is, I don't always do that, but I know what corn looks like. Well, sure enough, the non-artist executive director came back to me and said, because I had the corn kind of turning a reddish purple, raspberry color down near the base, and the executive director, the account executive came back to me and said, no, it stays green all the way to the bottom. I know that shouldn't bother me, but it just frosted me. He is a blind as a bat freaking. I'm sorry, that's really nasty. But you shouldn't, if you're not an artist, you really should not argue with artists about what things look like. So that was exasperating. And then I did Google. Then I did look it up. And of course, I was dead right. Sounds like I'm bragging. That's just the way artists are, man. We know what stuff looks like because we've been looking at it. And part of me said, you don't argue with a kid who grew up in southern Michigan, like farm country. You don't tell a kid from southern Michigan what corn looks like. I mean, that's just a bad deal right there. Anyway, how did I get so upset all of a sudden? What caused it? Oh, yeah, it's about, do people know what a boat looks like? The answer is heck no. Unless you're an artist, then maybe no. Or unless you're a sailor and you in boats a lot. And anyway, never mind. This tirade has gone on far too long already. So, let's think here. There's an awful lot of empty space down here. So, now it would be just fine with me. You know, what I'm doing here is I am trying to follow her wishes, and it would be just fine with me if she came back and said, "Oh no, that's," you know, because I'm going from what? I'm going from this to this. It'd be fine with me if she said, "Oh no, not that far back." All right, that would be just fine with me. I think I'm more worried. I'm not sure that's the right word, but I'm more worried that if I did it in between, that she'd say, "No, even further." That would be, for some reason, that would feel irritating to me. But whereas if I do it like this, and she says, "No, come back a little bit," or not, just if she says that's good, then that's fine with me too. I was just writing in my book just the other day, my Breakable Laws of Painting, about how to paint water. And the lines that this water will be very much, real quickly, the further the artist raises their line of vision and the further away the water is, the more all the lines in the water will be perfectly horizontal. If you look straight down at the water, the reflections and undulations and light and so forth in the water will be not horizontal at all. They'll be perfectly chaotic, if you will. And then as the further your vision goes, the more horizontal the lines become. The same is true with grass and dirt and soil and anything. It's just a matter of looking, or mountains viewed from, you know, if you look straight down on mountains, here's one mountain, here's another mountain, here's another mountain, here's another mountain. But if you look at mountains in the distance, the further off they go, the more striated or horizontal they become. Same thing with water. That was pretty dumb. I know you guys didn't need me to tell you that, but too late, I already did. Now, I am gonna tweak this a little bit. I'm gonna bring this horizon down and see if she'll go with. So in essence, I'm bringing the vision, the person in the boat closer to us. Now, here's the trick again that I showed the other day. For 45 years as an artist, I have used a light table extensively. And here's why. It's because it gives you a mirror image of the thing you just drew, the thing I just drew in this case, and you see different things. First of all, you discover, in my case, that when I draw like this, I never get things vertical. They're always. If I worked at it really hard, I know I could do it, but I don't work at it really hard. So when I turn it over, they go, "Ooh, eat gads." It's crooked. Here, by the way, if you're ever doing a painting of a lake or the ocean, a painting here I'm talking about, don't even try, in my opinion, don't even try to do it without a T-square or triangle or something. Because if that's off just a tiny bit, the human eye can see it. You know how easy it is for you, or if you're a married guy, How easy it is for your wife to see that one of the paintings on your wall is crooked? Do you know what I mean? The painting can be off by a 1/16 of an inch, and I'm just picking on the male-female thing here, good-naturedly. You know, your wife, so to speak, can see that it's off. Same thing is true in a painting. And if you're drawing a lake or an ocean, just don't even try to do it. So that's what I just did here. I used the lines on this ruler to make sure it's perfectly. Okay, it's just about time for me to graduate to, well, I've already graduated to the control grip. Do you see? At least I was for a minute there. Hey, Doug. Hey. Do you need me?
Yeah, how long will you be?
Probably another 15 minutes.
Well, let me rest my leg.
Okay.
If that's all right.
Sure.
Yeah, you sound like you're in the middle.
Yep. Once again, boundary ratios. You do not want any part of your painting or drawing to be all one shape or color area on any boundary. In fact, generally speaking, you don't want it symmetrical either. You want a different number here and here. Now, do I really want this Z formation to be shaped like a Z? Maybe I do. And again, this just represents a dark area in the water because of the way the wind goes across a lake, and it creates ripples. That's what I'm trying to indicate there. Oh, where's my detail pencil? Here it is. Another thing I would like, okay, so the light's coming from the left, and if that's so, then I get to paint a shadow of this oar on the side of the boat, and that is a nice little detail. Yeah, I'm doing the light same angle as the other sketch. So I'll tell you what, I'm going to wrap up here really quickly. Let's just do some of the shading with pencil and blending stub or tortillon. I always think it's probably Latin. It should be tortillon, but I might be wrong. I'll do some of the shading here, and then I'll do the same thing to this that I did to my earlier sketch, which is I'll scan this into my computer, and then do a lot of the shading in the computer. Hang on, excuse me here. I've got my mind is going in many things. One is she's expressed quite a bit. She said, my client says she wants the person reaching for the oar as if to say, huh, I wonder what this does, or I wonder what this is, or something like that. And just between you and me, it's going to be quite difficult to indicate that degree of psychological detail at this distance. That is why my original, see, I think here at this distance I can do the shape of her hand, the orientation of her arms, and the slight expression on her face. From this angle, I don't know, a little bit more difficult. I really have to think about that. How do I indicate, hesitancy and so on? I know, I think I have in here somewhere. Oh, good, I do. I have a piece of sandpaper for sharpening pencil leads. This lets me load up my blending stub with more graphite so that I can make darker marks more easily. So that's most of what I've got to do today, I think. And again, she's going to think I didn't read, excuse me, I'm about to sneeze. Hee-haw. She's going to think I ignored her instructions about, no, I said the oar's out of the water. And then I'm going to have to explain, you know, about what I call the dead angle. And she'll either buy it, she'll say, oh yeah, you're right. Or she'll go, no, I just don't get it. And then, by the way, is it possible to do a bad illustration because the client doesn't see well? The answer is heck yes. Yeah, that's probably happened many times in my career. I'm actually forced, I'm not saying that's going to happen here, but there's been many times when I've been forced, if you will, to do an inferior illustration or painting because the client insisted on something. But of course, part of the challenge as being an artist is to you know, try to do a good painting or a good illustration in spite of whatever whatever the client says, right? That reminds me that there's a corollary to that. I have told my family over the years, and I probably said this already to you guys, but anytime you see a commercial on TV that is really effective, now in my world that usually means funny. I feel like advertising is such a schlocky, low life activity, and I'm saying this as someone who's was in the world of advertising for decades. It's professional lying, basically, most of the time, right? Most of the time. But everybody knows it, so it's like a lie that doesn't matter much because everybody knows they're lying because it's advertising, right? Are we clear? So anytime you see a TV commercial, for instance, same thing would be true of radio and so forth, but anytime you see a good TV commercial, it's because somehow the advertising agency pulled off a minor miracle and they managed to get the boss man in the corner office to keep his nose out of their business and let them do their job. You cannot believe how true what I've just told you is. The guy in the corner office is a good businessman. That's why he's in the corner office. But usually good businessmen are not terribly visual or creative. It's like they're not actors typically, right? Or production people. They're good at managing money and managing people. But anyway, so whenever you see a good TV commercial, it's usually because somehow the advertising agency convinced the boss man or boss woman to do their job and to keep their nose out of their job. Take, for instance, like everybody's seen the Chick-fil-A cow campaign. Brilliant, probably has won a bunch of awards, I don't know. A typical boss man would have, or woman, would have looked at that concept and said, that's stupid, we're not going to do that. And he would have killed it, because it's kind of outside of the box, right? What do you mean we're going to put three-dimensional cows up on a billboard? That's stupid. That's expensive. We're not going to do that. Et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, that just comes to mind. But it's amazing, remarkably true, how often true. We're all good at something. Very few of us, nobody is good at everything. That's just, all right. There, I'm blathering on long enough. Hello, friends. Ooh, ooh. Yeah, I do general commissions. Thanks for noticing. Tom Daniel. Show you the rough sketch. Yeah. Thank you, Hilda. No, I'm doing, thank you. Good question, Hilda. I, what you can't see is I'm reaching over here to my left and pulling a piece of copy paper off my printer. So it's plain old stupid paper. You know, it's Office Depot paper. It's not art paper at all. It's just, and the only bad thing, it's probably not acid free. So in 20 years, it'll turn brown. And they get browner from there on. All right. So I think that's a good place for me to stop. Again, I might do a little tiny bit more detail in here. I don't know. But I'm going to scan this at a fairly high res, 300 or 400 DPI, and then work on it in Photoshop. Increase the contrast because it's just easier to do. See, it's easier to do in Photoshop than it is with pencil. And then I'll send this to my client. I do expect more changes, recommendations back from her. First of all, she might say, oh, no, it doesn't mean, you know, it went from this to this. She might say, oh, it doesn't have to be that far. Or she might say, oh, that's perfect. That's what I was looking for. That'd be nice. And I might have to explain why I've got one oar in the water. But I want it to be, you know, the oar is just drifting. So she does not have her hand on it. Maybe this other hand is up in the light area so we can see a little better. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I might make that change in Photoshop. All right. Thank you, gang. Thank you for putting up with this rather boring broadcast. And when I come to the original, I certainly expect to broadcast that. And I look forward to being with you again. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.